Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. First, a quick reminder to go ahead, support Jamaica at this time. We're all aware of the current conditions, and the people there need help, support, love, and it's a global effort, so please do go and find a way to give, if it's a local charity or straight directly to the government of Jamaica. My name is Asmara Mitchell. You're back on my channel, where I've been recently sharing a bit of my backstory, a bit of information about where I come from, things I've been through, and I'm just gonna go ahead and continue today because the most recent development is I have been talking to some people about my heritage, my birth records. Yeah, it's not, I haven't really gone into as much detail on here on this channel because obviously, it's day by day, it's video by video. But today I wanted to talk about some of the family members that I do know and just quickly outline some of the confusion that's going on at the moment and where I stand. Yeah. To start, shout out to my daughter. She is my number one family member. She's the person who I've spent the majority of the last 15 years with. She's been a great support system in her own little way, as much as a child can be. But it's given me a lot of hope becoming a mum. And yeah, I'll forever be so grateful that I've been given that opportunity to be called mother. So despite all of the rubbish I've gone through with family and friends, I still do have a family regardless of the number of people within it. She is my family. Anyways, um, I was born in Brixton. I've said this a million times, but I've not said that I don't have a birth record. So I know from what my birth certificate says that I was born in a hospital in the Brixton area. But that hospital has told me in the last 5 years that there's no birth record for me. They've not really given me a solid reason as to why that record cannot be found. And when I've approached my mother about it, she has basically cut me off. So I've spent the last 10 years or so, roughly, with no contact with her. Not necessarily through choice of my own, but basically it's a decision that she's made. She's not really told me why, but from my perspective, I put it down to, once I started confronting her about some of the suspicions I've had and some of the emails I've read and some of the, stories that don't make sense, she basically wanted nothing to do with me. She doesn't want anything to do with her granddaughter either. So in around 2018, when the questions surrounding my upbringing and things like that started going around, rumors started going around, people were asking me questions, I was meeting people, and I really started to realize, you know what, you don't actually have the right answers. The more people I met, the more I realized that I didn't know enough about myself. Like, I wasn't a normal person who could just tell you their backstory back to front. And I grew up thinking that was normal. I grew up thinking, okay, you don't exactly remember, you've never seen a picture of yourself when you were born. You've not seen a picture of yourself before the age of 3, but that's normal. I obviously know now it's not. I say that a lot. I obviously know now it's not. Um, but yeah, so I started asking questions. I started saying, I want my birth record at least. The birth certificate is not going to cover it because birth certificates in the 90s, I think, my suspicion is documents, have been forged. We know that in the UK, people have fake documents, people have connections in the passport office, people have connections in registry office. I don't know whether based on that birth certificate, I can actually wholly say, yes, I believe the information I've been given. So I start looking, I start digging, I start writing to hospitals, I start writing to everybody. I'm not going to name all the people, but let's say we've gone as far as the MP. We've gone as far as who has also gone as far as talking to the director of the NHS. they've all come back to me. I've got all my receipts. They've come back to me and said, we have no birth record for you. I said, that's strange. That only happens if one of two things: your records have been destroyed. Nobody knows why anyone would destroy your birth record. Somebody has said to me, it is something it's a practice that some hospitals keep up after a certain time, your birth records, etc., etc. But the birth record would always exist on your mother's record. So whether the birth record exists within my medical records, it should technically always exist within my mother's records, because that's her maternity records. She's had a child, that would be documented. Simple. My daughter's birth would not be erased from my medical records. It will always be there, as far as I know. As I said, she's refused to show me evidence of the birth, and even though this has reached as far as it has, there's been no evidence produced. So I started to ask family members. I say that lightly because I haven't actually spoken to a member of my family since about 2021, around COVID. And that was just one person I was in contact with who isn't on my mother's side. He's on my dad's side, and he's well, I'm gonna do a video on the people in my dad's side in another video. So on my mother's side, and I'm gonna use the term mother until I've disproved totally that she's not, and it just makes it easier. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 siblings. 7. I think it's 7 siblings, and the majority of those are half siblings. So she's got 2 siblings that were born to the same parents, mother and father, who were supposed to be my grandparents, and the rest of her siblings have different parents. So her dad has, oh God, if I sit here and try and count, let me actually try and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has about 7 kids that I know of. 7, 8, or 9, give or take. I've never been introduced to all of them because I think one of them, who's in Jamaica, I was always told I was going to meet him. Never got to meet him when I visited Jamaica. I've never had any contact with him, and I don't even know his name. Yeah, so basically, when I was really young, the first thing I can remember of meeting my mum's side of the family is living with her dad in around 1992, let's say about 92 or 93. It might even have been 94, because I have a picture of myself on my 4th birthday, which I think is the first picture that I have of me. Somebody else, which is one of my mum's sisters, my aunt, she always showed me this picture of myself, and she says that I'm 3 years older in the picture, and I should remember that day because she took me out for a day out at the Arndale Centre. I don't recognize myself in that picture. It's a very faded picture, and it's on a badge. It's like she got it developed onto a badge thing. Anyway, I have also seen some pictures of myself, but I can't tell if it's me or not. And I look about 2.5 or 3, but I still have a very babyish face. So yeah, so as I said, my first memories of these people are about that age, 2.5, 3. I don't expect to remember much before that, but there's just nothing, blank completely. And I'm not going to go into like, oh, I felt like I was introduced to them and everything in this video, because that's not what this video is about. I'm just talking from the perspective of how I grew up, like thinking these people were related to me. So I was always very familiar with her dad. We lived with him. And then the next person I became familiar with was her sister, which I've always known as my aunt my whole life. Her name's Maisie. Jenny. They all have like 2 names. Some of them, you call them by different names. I've never actually seen anyone's passport or birth certificate, but I believe what I've been told, and I believe they all do have their documents. I've just never seen any of them. So then there's the three other sisters. So these sisters are actually mixed race, and they are supposedly born to a white lady. But I've never met the white lady who they say is their mum. I've only heard about her. So they only talk about her, and they just kind of talk about the fact that she doesn't like Peter An's dad. Obviously, there was a tumultuous relationship or whatever, which led to 3 kids. Don't know what happened. My mum, which is Peter Ann, she always spoke about like how it was hard for her when the 3 girls were born, because it was a time when her dad, which is my granddad, left her mum for this lady and had 3 children, and this is when their life basically catapulted into difficulty. Yeah, so this was basically the time when their lives basically became really hard. They had no male support, and the mum, which is her mum, was by herself raising 3 children and trying to start a business, working, and she found it really difficult because she was a migrant, an immigrant, or not an immigrant, but she came here from Jamaica, and was obviously working very hard, and all of a sudden had no support. These stories have been corroborated along the way, but like Peter An's mum, which is Peter An's my mum, Peter An's mother doesn't like to talk about the upbringing of her kids. I've never sat with her and had a conversation with like her saying, oh, this is what it was like for me raising 3 kids or whatever. The only thing she's ever said to me is, oh, your mum, I used to take her with me to do my cleaning job at 5 a.m. sometimes because I didn't have a babysitter and this, that, and other. So I've never really been told a proper story about their upbringing. I just know it was difficult for them, and they said there was racism and it was very cold. So that's that. Then after the 3 girls, who are the mixed race girls, there's 2 girls who are oh, I should mention Peter Ann has a brother as well, who I've met like 3 or 4 times. We went to his wedding as well, and he's got about 2 children or 3 children. But again, I've only ever spoken to him on the phone maybe once. I always called him uncle when I've been around him, but I don't know him. I've never had his telephone number. He's never contacted me on like a birthday or Christmas, or we've never spent Christmas with him. But these people all live within London, but we never see them. So then there's the 2 other sisters, the younger sisters, which some people have seen me with one of the younger sisters because we hung out for like about a year when I was about 13. But again, there wasn't much of a relationship there. She obviously went on to treat me quite badly. I've never got an explanation from her. We never fell out. We never had an argument apart from the last time I saw her. But before that, I never understood what her problem was with me. But she did used to say to me, like, when I tried to call her aunt, she'll be like, don't call me aunt. Call me your cousin. Or, like, she would just be really weird and she wouldn't explain her behaviour. She would just say, like, we're too close in age for you to say to people I'm your aunt. So just tell people I'm your cousin, etc., etc. I've never got in touch with her about much. Like I said, for a little while we hung out, and then when I had my daughter, when I was pregnant with her, she came to see me a couple of times. But again, our conversations were always very limited, and if I ever tried to ask questions, I'm always kind of like struck down, which you can imagine because I'm bringing my whole story on the internet because I clearly am that confused. I'm in my 30s and I don't have a clue what's gone on. And yeah, that's about 10 people on her side that, and obviously Peter Ann has 3 sons that I grew up with in the same household. None of these people communicate with me. I'm sure by now, if you've watched 5 or 6 of my videos, you've probably made an opinion of what type of person I am. You've probably decided for yourself whether it sounds fishy, whether it sounds like I'm in the wrong. Like, some people would sit there and be like, no, you seem like the type of person who's probably done something. But obviously I've opened the floor to anybody to come up and sort of say like, and I have made sure these people could potentially see these posts, you know, they are across all my platforms, and I have actually communicated with these people on my platforms, my social media platforms before. So I don't think it's completely unlikely that they've seen what I'm talking about, that they've not seen it. And I've never seen any of them sort of like dispute what I'm saying, and it does concern me a lot. But again, it's kind of like characteristic of how I grew up, where I never had direct communication with people, and I always thought I'm sure you're my family members. And at first, because of the neglect and the abuse that I suffered when I was very small, I thought it was normal. And then, as I said, as I got older and I saw people with their cousins and their aunts, and realized that I didn't grow up with my cousins don't see me as cousins because all these people have their own children as well. This is the aunts and uncles. And I remember hearing stories about children being born and maybe having met them once or twice, but they never looked at me like I was a cousin. I never, the children, it's like they were told before they met me not to talk to me, because it would be like, they would literally be giving me weird looks, like at family functions, these people wouldn't communicate with me. And some of these kids are like the same age as me, or maybe like now I'm in my 30s, they're in their late 20s, like no reason to kind of like feel a complete distance between me. But I don't know what they were told by their parents about me. And as I said, none of my cousins have ever come forward and added me on social media. I don't even remember some of their names. That's how I grew up. I grew up just kind of like being so distant from it all. I think when you've been through a certain amount of neglect, abuse, and repetitive sort of behavior, you kind of block things out. So at a point, I just forgot about everybody. And where I haven't spoken directly to any of my family members, immediate family members like brothers, or Peter and for like nearly 15 years now, where we've not sat down in a room together and communicated like in the way we used to at a family function or at a birthday gathering or whatever, where I've not done that with them for so long. I've literally forgotten everyone. I vaguely remember people, but it's so sad. Like, it's so sad that I feel like a kind of sense of despair, because you would think that at least one person would have come forward by now and just said, look, this is the deal, this is why you're in this situation. I used to get in a lot of fights with my brother, my older brother that I grew up with. He can be very horrible, very nasty to me, but I grew up thinking that was normal. I grew up thinking him calling me names and hitting me was normal, until I realized it wasn't. And you know, we don't have a relationship now, but again, he's never come forward and said, we don't speak to you collectively as a family because of this particular reason or that. So as I said, there's nothing I can pinpoint to say why the whole family would just be like, no thanks. The only thing that sticks out to me is because I have questioned my heritage, because I asked for a DNA test. I didn't just ask for a DNA test from Peter and I asked from my brothers as well. I asked if they would potentially come forward and do it. It would at least give some percentage of an indication of the likelihood of relation. So I just think it might be more so to do with that. It would be really sad if all of these people knew that I wasn't related to them and didn't say anything. But I can understand if you want to protect your family. I've never threatened to harm anybody if I'm not related to them. I've never threatened to make anyone's life difficult. But I have had to come out here and speak up for myself because it doesn't make sense. So I'm always appealing for different things. But if anybody knows what's happened to me, then I would appreciate obviously somebody speaking up and explaining to me what they know. If anybody thinks they can help me, point me in the right direction, you know, you can create an anonymous account, you can send an anonymous message. It would be greatly appreciated. It's something I've been going through my whole life. Fortunately, I have got a bit of a lifeline, and I have been given the opportunity to ask the courts for a DNA test. It's not something that the courts normally do, so there's every chance they may just turn me down. And at that point, I will be stuck. I will be stuck in a place where I will never get the answers, because if they decide they don't want to give me the test, or I'm not convincing enough to the courts, then that will be the end of the road. I will never be able to sort of like get these people on my side and just at least get them to do a swab and just tell me whether there's any chance that we're related. And that obviously is a big fear. Like, I'm facing one of the toughest times of my life when it comes to this situation. As I said, there is a whole nother side of the family, which is my dad, rest in peace. His side of the family also involved, also equally do not communicate with me. I will go through the people that I haven't spoken to before or become aware of. This video is brief. I haven't put out the names of everybody who's related to Peter, and I think there'll be a part 2. I'm almost sort of expecting somebody, one of them, to come and contact me because it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, there are a lot of them. I don't know if there's been a conversation between them or whether they're all just kind of like, we're not getting involved, or, and I do think it's unfair because I grew up believing that these were my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers, my sisters. Like, it's really not fair to leave someone with no family, not a dad, not a mum, not an auntie, not a cousin, not an, I don't understand it. I would never do this to somebody. And yeah, I hope I get justice. And you've got to imagine what my daughter's been through growing up, what she is going to go through the older she gets and realizes how unusual the situation is. She wasn't born into this. When she was born, I still was under the impression I was related to these people. This situation hadn't got to this point. The police were not involved. I still was in communication with people. And yes, these people have technically always been neglectful my whole life. And I feel like the attitude has been, how could you think we were related? Have we ever shown you that we care about you? I feel like that's been some of the energy, which again, I just think is absolutely disgusting. But I feel more so worried about my daughter. Like, a lot of people have a very big family, a lot of people have strong family connections, and for her to have nobody that's ever reached out, even when she was in hospital, you know, even at her milestones, nobody's ever reached out to just say, to share kind words or to just repost her on the internet or anything. It's so sad. It's so sad. But I've been going through this my whole life, and the reason we even got to this point is because when I was a teenager, I was like, this can't be real. Like, these cannot be my family members. I spent so many years just being in the presence of people and thinking, there's no way that you're related to me. The way you talk to me, the way you look at me. When I call you, you don't pick up the phone. You don't return calls. But you don't contact me on my normal milestones like birthdays, like GCSE day. You've never spoken to me. You've never given me that energy of family. Like, to find out in this way, for them to just leave it over the years, for me to just be like putting 2 and 2 together without knowing what mental state I'm in, you know, whether I understand or don't understand, they don't care. I just don't see why they would have done this. And I do hope that they get what they deserve, because this is no way to treat somebody, you know. Anyway, like I said, those are the people that I'm mainly thinking about, the people who live in the UK. Like, my dad's side of the family, they don't mostly live here. There's one individual from his family who did live with him when I was about 9 or 10. He lived with him for a few years, and he's meant to be a cousin of mine. He also stopped talking to me in around 2016. We were talking on Facebook, we were meeting up. And then all of a sudden, around the same time period, after this man went to jail, around the same time period, he just stopped answering my messages. I don't have an address for him now. He moved. I heard that he'd moved. I don't have a telephone number for him, and he doesn't respond to me on social media, which is just so bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. And like I said, there's been no falling out, no exchange of bad words, no cursing, no nothing. We don't have that type of relationship. These people are like lawyers, and they're very like decent people, supposedly, who just cut contact with me all of a sudden, and they all did it around the same time. So yeah, I have yet to find out what's really gone on. As I said, I'm in court next month. It's this month, actually. Now we're on the 1st of November. And I obviously will be updating my social media about what the courts say to me. My mind is saying, you know, I might not get the outcome I'm looking for. You always have to prepare for that. I have to make a contingency plan if that's the case. I might have to go on foot and knock people's doors and try and find people's addresses and try to actually fight for these answers. Maybe the magistrate or the judge will be able to point me in the right direction or share some kind words with me if I don't get the result I'm looking for, and say to me, you know, maybe this is the way you should move on. This is the way to forget about this situation. But it will be on that day that my mind will be made up about whether these people are related to me or not. I don't expect Peter Ann to turn up to the court, although she has been asked on multiple occasions to be there. I don't expect her to send a representative from her family. I shared the information through a third party because I don't have any of their numbers. that third party said he was hesitant to pass on information on my behalf because, again, he's not on my side. He doesn't care what's happened to me. He watched me grow up. I've known him since I was about 14, and he doesn't care. And it is a shame. And again, I'm fighting for myself, and I am emotional. I don't want to get emotional in this video. I'm quite used to handling my emotions in private. But yeah, I'm saddened by what I've been through, and this is a brave step, I know, that I'm taking, but I'm actually hoping that we're not related, because if we are, it will probably be even more difficult to process why I was abandoned at 19 years old with my baby. And even more so why the contact was cut in 2016. It'll be really hard for me to realize what's gone on there. I still don't know. Yeah, so I am going to try and do a video where I put all the evidence from the emails from the NHS and pictures of myself, in case anybody might remember me from that age. Obviously a tiny black child. I mean, we all kind of look very similar when we're small. Like I said, it might jog someone's memory. And I'm going to keep looking for answers. But thank you for watching this video. If you've got any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. And have a blessed day. Bye.